Good evening. It is my job, as the man who is currently sitting in this hopefully very cinematic rectangle on your screen, to entertain you with a complete idea. An idea that no one else has talked about. An idea that compares two things that shouldn't be related, but just wait until I use Greek mythology to explain fake checkpoints in video games. An idea that makes people go into the comments and say things like, "Welp, now I'm crying at a Wendy's." An idea that is finished. But tonight, we talk to the ghosts of videos that will never be. These are topics that, for one reason or another, I'll never make. Maybe it was too creatively ambitious and I chickened out. Maybe I felt like I had nothing original to contribute. Maybe, you know what, let's just do this. Let me tell you how this video was originally going to start, because it wasn't always going to be this. So, let's talk to spirit number one. Shall we? Twin bosses in video games have always tickled my brain just right. In Ocarina, when you fight the twin rover witches Koume and Kotake, you quickly discover that one is the key to taking down the other. You reflect Kotake's ice into the fire-wielding Koume to deal her damage, and vice versa. This design feels much more clever than a simple fight two dudes instead of one, and it makes it feel like a unified encounter that was built for two bosses, which I think is the key to making a good twin boss fight. Ornstein and Smo are the obvious flagship examples here because of the decisions and potential strategies that spread like garden weeds in the folds of your prefrontal cortex. Do you try to kill one quickly and ignore the other? Do you try and get them both low so that when one goes down and the other one becomes stronger to compensate, it's not as tough to kill them? Which one do you kill first? Which one is tougher to deal with alone? You'll figure a similar mental calculus when you fight Theseus and Asterius in Hades. Once one is beat, the other one goes into a rage and becomes much harder to take on. And I've found that this is how most twin bosses are designed. Either they are protected from dying separately like Magni and Modi in God of War so that a cutscene can play afterwards, or they can combine like in NieR Automata, or once you slay one, the remaining tag partner will go berserk. And this is what I had in mind when I fought a certain boss very early in Act 2 of Silksong. So yes, some minor and early Act 2 spoilers here. The Cogwork Dancers are a three-phase fight, and they're deceptively straightforward. This showdown, which appears to be taking place in a massive music box, doesn't play out like most boss fights because the dancers actively tell you where they are about to be. Dodging is simple, but not easy. And each phase of the fight plays to a slightly different song. The first phase is slow, the second is faster, the third is fastest. They regroup and change the track as gears and cogs clack into place behind them. By telling you where they're going and moving with the song, the dancers almost present as a rhythm game instead of a boss fight. Here are your commands, time your inputs correctly. You almost get the sense that these two would be waltzing even if you weren't here right now. They aren't actively targeting hornets like other bosses do, they're just having fun, and you're in the way. If you get hit, well, you weren't on rhythm. This is a dance, they are leading, do not get stepped on. But at some point during that third phase, the song will end as you finally take one of the dancers down. And I expected, at this point, as many of us likely did, for the remaining dancer to open up a fresh and unrelenting hellfire of new moves and a fourth song with a blistering pace. But as he rewound the music box for another song, the gears struggled and grinded without the other half to match. Instead of a berserk phase 4, I got a grief-stricken half performance. Instead of another song, I got a broken sputtering of notes. None of his moves worked anymore. His grand embrace at the center was powerless without his partner. And I love that Team Cherry did this. They could have easily gone the angry extra phase route and frivolously added more difficulty, but instead, they chose to tell a story with this encounter. They chose to foreshadow one of the most moving subplots in the game and lean into the fact that without his partner, the fight completely falls apart. This moment, without saying a word, illustrates loss in a powerful way. And this is one of the many ways that Silksong tells its stories wordlessly. And I'd like to take you on a tour through some of my favorite ways it does this.
Or at least I did, because you see, then a fun thing happened. The video mitosis. All at once I realized I can get 2 videos out of this. And this happens sometimes. Ideas are like sips of your partner's drink. Sometimes 1 becomes 2, or 27. I realized I could do a video on twin boss fights and Silksong's wordless storytelling.
I could talk about the complexities of duo boss fights and which ones go beyond the norms like the Cogwork Dancers and Koshi and Roshi. Or, as originally intended, I could use the dancers as a jumping pad into the religious allegories in Silksong that are completely illustrated in the gameplay. The fact that currency is rosaries, the fact that the enemies in the coral chambers are loaded with them, but those in the underworks are barely scraping by and don't really drop any upon defeat. How benches in the underworks are only for paying customers, whereas up top they are abundant and luxurious. How all of this weaves into your interactions with Sherma and Pavo and Jacob Geller has done this exact video.
Damn it. I guess I should have played Silksong faster. Now don't get me wrong, nothing but love for Jacob. That video is incredible, as is pretty much all of his work. His video on the darkest Zelda made me a better writer. Jacob, if you're watching this, thank you. But this happens, you know? Hell, Rasputin, who has always been extremely kind to me, has DM'd me before to joke about the fact that I made a video before he was able to get to it. We're all scrambling to come up with good ideas, all playing the same games. It's only natural that we'd often share a brain cell. But that's okay. The twin boss fight thing is still a great idea. Son of a bitch! All right. I'll admit it. It is a little frustrating. I will fully admit that. We're all doing our best, and I'm never mad at anyone for beating me to a topic, but I guess really more so just disappointed in myself for not getting there faster. And that's not a good place to be creatively. Speed does not foster novel thought. But novel thoughts were easier to have yesterday. But enough from me. Let's hear from the spirits again. What do you say?
Graffiti in the real world feels like a natural occurrence to me. Never have I ever witnessed an anthill being built. I just walk outside one day and there they are. Street art is the same way. I've never seen something be painted in person just by happenstance. It's almost as if some sly little nocturnal creature comes out and paints it in the dark. It's incredible to me how these massive murals somehow feel like they've always been there, even if I can clearly see that it's new. They're beautiful, they're meaningful. If aliens ever walked Earth's abandoned streets after we were long gone, they're proof that humans lived here. Yes, obviously buildings are proof of that too, but this is proof we lived here. Things were felt, opinions were had, imagination was of value. Which is why I'm always tickled pink when I find graffiti in video games. The amount of work that went into the scrawlings on the alleyways and subway stations in Alan Wake 2 is nothing short of mind-boggling. In Dead Space, this alien writing on the wall invites you to imagine someone slowly losing their mind as they slather this with their fingers. Wall writing works really well in horror games. Some examples are better than others. I really love this one piece in Stellar Blade that just says, "Crime." Wait, what did it say before they patched it? It's one thing to come up with a fake business and then put that sign in the game as an asset. It's another for there to be tatas drawn on this sign in Yakuza. Street art makes these places feel lived in. A developer made this wall texture, but someone from the neighborhood made this. In an era where graphics try to emulate people, graffiti is an underrated way to emulate population. And
Whoa, what's going on here? Ghost number 2 wasn't done yet.
What you're looking at is my old desk setup. The cable management has all the elegance of a newborn zebra in a bouncy house. It is stuck at one height, making comfort a real problem, and there is so little room that I've got my computer and my PS5 in a wicker box on the floor. It's not a fire hazard, shut up. So I've been in the market for a new desk for quite a while now, especially since I want something that stands. It's not hard to find research that supports the notion that sitting for long hours month in and month out will slowly destroy your body, and since I have this job, that is a real concern. But standing is associated with a host of positive outcomes. So when flexispot reached out to me about their E7 Pro standing desk, oh, I was listening with bated breath. Here is my new desk setup, and it immediately addresses pretty much all of my problems. The computer and PS5 have room to breathe now, the cables are snugly tucked away into bed, and when, not if, I inevitably get stir crazy editing and researching, I can pop this thing into standing mode and get on my feet. I can stretch and dance and do FF7 squats. In only a few weeks' time, I already feel lighter, and this thing is built to give me confidence. One, this baby has a 440-pound static capacity. It can hold twice my weight. Two, it is ridiculously stable, both when I'm aggressively typing about video game graffiti and when it's changing heights. And another thing I love is the variety. There is a color that will match your dream office perfectly. And as fate would have it, flexispot is having Christmas sales right now. You can use my code YTE7P50 for an extra $50 off and get your own E7 Pro standing desk. Or maybe you need a better seat instead. Use code C750 to get $50 off the C7 Max, which I have and has been a game changer. Thanks again to flexispot for sponsoring this ghost.
Sorry about that. The ghosts are a little rambunctious tonight. Now then, ghost number 2, as you were saying.
Actually, that's all I had.
What, really?
Yeah, that's kind of it. This is one of those topics where I didn't have much of value to say other than it's cool and rattle off some fun examples. Why am I explaining this to you? It was your idea. You tell them.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that. The street art topic is one where I felt like no matter how much I wrote, I only had like 5 minutes of video for you guys, and all I really had to say was it's cool and it makes video games better and I like it. There were no real larger meaningful points, and I have a lot of videos like this, a lot of videos where maybe I don't even have that much.
I don't even know what this video was going to be about. I wrote it down years ago and forgot what my point was going to be. I never deleted it from my notes because I thought it was hilarious and would get clicks if I ever cracked the code on it. I write every idea down, regardless of how stupid or underdeveloped it is, because sometimes all I need to come across is one good example and then a landslide of connections wash over me. This is how it happens, which is why when people reach out to me for creative advice,
I typically say write everything down because you never want anything to wash down the drain, especially when it can resurface years from now. But sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes you have a wonderful idea, but then don't strike while the iron is hot, and then people stop talking about it. Sometimes, in fact, always, it's frightening to write about something completely unrelated to gaming on a gaming channel.
Clara Bow was 15 years old when she responded to the Fame and Fortune contest of 1921. Are you young? Are you pretty? Can you act? The newspaper ad read. If you possess all of these qualifications, you are exactly what we are looking for. Attending and winning this contest would completely change the life of a young lower-class girl from Brooklyn. Clara's roots were tragic, to say the least. Her mother once attacked her with a knife, her father once sexually assaulted her. But in spite of this, Clara Bow, in 5 short years, would grow to become not just Hollywood's new it girl, but would be the face of a new age for women's identity in America. This ad being the spark that lit the fire as it gave her a chance to be on screen and in front of producers. Clara was bouncy, fun, emotive. Where the other girls in that audition tried to emulate actresses of the past, Clara was simply herself. This is what separated her from the pack. She was this bubbly, anthropomorphic rainbow that wore her thoughts on her sleeve, which gave her this almost cartoonish quality. Even now, a full 100 years later, when you watch her, she just demands your attention in a way that none of the others on screen do. And America loved her. Oh my goodness. This newspaper from the time pointed out that she had so much fan mail coming in that Paramount installed a private post office for the over 370,000 pieces of mail each month. Yes, there were simps even then. You have Reze, your great-granddad had a Clara. But her influence didn't stop there, because the 20s was a time when women's identity in America was going through a massive change. After the First World War, the old Victorian-style norms for women began to melt away. The wardrobe became less flowy and instead shorter and more comfortable. Birth control became easier to find. White women could now vote. All around, it was a decade where a girl could simply live lighter, and on screen, Clara carried the torch of this new, confident woman. She became more than a movie star, she became an ideal, a symbol, a girl that women across the nation wanted to emulate, which meant everything about her became a product. Lipstick, soap, shoe shine, makeup. This was one of the first real surges of consumer culture in the States, and as Marsha Orgeron points out in her book, Making It in Hollywood, even stars' personal lives were part of this product. Fan magazines would print, however untrue, details of what celebrities did from day to day. She says, not only were the details of the stars' lives made public, they belonged to the public and were made readily available. Purchasable is perhaps a more accurate way to put it, through the medium of the fan magazine. And a tragic implication of this is that for many actors like Clara Bow, they were robbed of their ability to simply act and then go home. Clara's fame especially reached a critical mass. Every tiny decision or mistake she made was heavily scrutinized by the public. If she behaved in a way that this new modern woman shouldn't, the magazines would shine a magnifying glass over it. Her love life was heavily analyzed by those with a platform to write. Later in her career, it was often printed that she was soft, stupid, had never really been in love, couldn't stay in love, and bounced from man to man. There was a miscommunication at a casino that led the nation to brand her a cheat. One specific blast in 1931 printed a laundry list of accusations about her, including, but not limited to, incest, drug addiction, alcoholism, orgies, even bestiality. The grotesque claims were, of course, false. The man who wrote it was convicted in a federal court for libel and sent to prison. But the article still ran, still circulated, still sat in front of the nation for weeks, and still made its way to Clara, who was apparently so shaken at this that she threw up, became physically and mentally ill, and willingly checked herself into a sanatorium. It wasn't long after this that she severed ties with Hollywood. She was only 25 years old. By the way, if you want to know more about Clara, most of this information came from this fantastic video by Be Kind Rewind, link down below. And it's haunting to see, almost a full century later, how many story beats of Clara's life are echoed in a little manga you've probably heard of called Oshi no Ko. If you somehow avoided it, Oshi no Ko is a manga and anime series that opens with Ai Hoshino, a fictional Japanese pop idol that, like Clara, is more of an ideal than a person. The series does a tremendous job of portraying the Japanese pop idol industry, and it illustrates many of the cruel realities that accompany it in the modern age. Like Clara, Ai came from nothing and is now a national phenomenon. Like Clara, Ai is overworked and underpaid. Like Clara, Ai is a product to be sold, and in her words, a lie that people buy into. She is the portrait of perfection. She is on screen not for herself, but for her fans, constantly seeking the validation that perhaps she never received as a child. The same validation that you could argue Clara was also seeking. And that's my speculation, of course, but again, Oshi no Ko doesn't shy away from some of the grittier aspects of the industry. For one, many real-life lawsuits have occurred in Japan because idols breached their no-dating clause imposed by their agencies. So when, in the first chapter, Ai arrives at a hospital pregnant, it becomes a critical plot point early on that this be kept secret, otherwise her entire reputation and career would come crumbling down. And it's not just stated here. You see fans actively hate the idea that their idol is marrying. There is a sense that by doing so, they are betraying all of the fans' support. There is a vicarious fantasy that otakus have with idols even today that is extremely projective by nature. Just as Clara's private life was purchasable by the public, so too does Ai's belong to her fans. Just as Clara was verbally crucified for her dating habits, Ai is subject to the same scrutiny. It's a sickening sight to see the malice Oshi no Ko portrays in some of these moments, and even more disturbing to imagine that these people not only still exist, but in some ways even did in 1931. And this only scratches the surface of the, I'll go ahead and say it, generational trauma portrayed in Oshi no Ko. These problems reincarnate in the form of social media and television production. Just as Clara was sickened and practically driven mad by the words printed in that 31 article, Akane Kurakawa, an actress, is completely devastated in the wake of a tsunami of hate she receives for her performance on a reality show, ultimately driving her to a numb, cold, rainy evening where she considers taking her life. Again, I know I sound like a broken record at this point, just like Clara years after her retirement. Her husband was running for government office, and the thought of re-entering the public eye left her so traumatized that she made an attempt at her own life. In the note she left, she stated she preferred death to a public life. This is the type of anguish that sinisterly looms over the narrative of Oshinoko, broken people trying to use the eyes of others to rebuild themselves, products who desperately want to be people, whether they realize it or not.
Well, that's a fucking bummer. Way to ruin the mood, ghost number 5. I didn't realize spirits could be so ghastly. A little cold out there. I didn't finish this video for a handful of reasons. The main one being, duh. Of course, everyone knows that being a creator in any capacity means you got to grow tough skin because people suck. And as a creator, I didn't want to sound whiny about my own trials and tribulations, especially since they aren't near as bad as ghost number 5 so eloquently articulated for us. Another reason is I missed my window to talk about this.
And this isn't like Silksong. I could have talked about this any time in the past 2 years. The iron would have been plenty hot. But I was too afraid to pull the trigger. It is terrifying to risk a video not doing numbers and go from years of gaming videos into a random one about an actress from the 20s and an anime that features a dude being reincarnated as the baby of the 16-year-old girl he had a crush on, and there's also a breastfeeding joke, and
Jesus Christ, Akasaka. It's scary to roll those dice.
Especially when I do about sports, it bombs and fucks up my analytics for like 3 months.
Plus, the way that Oshinoko ended kind of ruined the series for a lot of people, and it certainly didn't cement it as an all-time great for me. But then again, if I had $1 for every manga that I read that ended perfectly, I'd have $1 in a box set of Full Metal Alchemist. But despite it all, I still kind of love Oshinoko. Akane is one of the most interesting characters I've read in the past decade. Kana is a shallow, self-centered bitch. Yeah, I said it. Fight me. I'm not a ghost. That video is still getting made.
But yeah, ghost number 5 is what I would call a near miss. I even teased it a few years back. It's a video that I wanted to make, not because I offered up any real insight that anyone else who has read it or talked about it hasn't, but simply because it spoke to me, especially at this stage of my career. There are times when I feel like I have to be something for the camera. And it's not just me. I'm sure many professional social media things out there feel this too. What would happen if I didn't have a big grand point to make in a video? What if I fall off? What if I do a whole video on a topic and never once mention a video game in it?
What if I just rambled in a parking lot in the middle of the night because I couldn't come up with a video this month?
I get the pressure of hoping people like your soul-bearing analysis on FromSoft games. I get the almost hilarious and life truly has no meaning sensation of seeing hundreds of your hours of work pale in comparison to the mountain of views received on a random 2-minute Asmongold clip. I get, like Akane, for the first time this year actually, watching as a small subset of Twitter tears me to pieces for a silly tweet I composed about Expedition 33 while I was sitting on the toilet. I am a real person. I hurt like you do. I am fallible like you are. I am not a product.
And I don't bring this up to say woe is me. I'm past it. I'm stronger for it. It was a dumb tweet. I admit it.
I bring it up to hopefully create the same sensation in you that I felt when I read Oshinoko. Empathy and the comfort that other people have struggled to. That creating, while a wonderful privilege, leaves your soul exposed to the masses.
Just as Taylor Swift sings in her song, Clara Bow, it's hell on earth to be heavenly. Also, for the record, that was the ghost quoting Taylor Swift in a video. I would never do that.
Hi. As I'm sitting here about to edit Ghost number 6, I was looking back at the script, and the more I read it, the more I thought, damn, I've actually got more examples I could talk about. I've got more things I could add to this. This could brew into a proper video. And so I'm gonna make a pimp decision. Ghost number 6 is getting resurrected. We're gonna monster reborn Ghost number 6, and it'll be a full proper video next year. Sorry, and you're welcome. I don't know how to treat this. Yeah, we're gonna move on to the next ghost now.
Let's speak to our final spirit of the evening. And I don't really have anything super interesting to say, no clever lead up here. Just know that this one is pretty special to me. So, without further ado.
In the opening seconds of 500 Days of Summer, we're met with an author's note. The following is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Especially you, Jenny Beckman. Bitch. These lines immediately get your mind churning. Okay, whoever wrote this is angry about a girl, and it's through this lens that you see Zooey Deschanel's character Summer in this film. To quickly give you a plot synopsis of one of my favorite movies of all time, Tom Hansen is smitten with Summer, the new girl in his office. Which really sucks because she ultimately ends up breaking up with him, leaving him so devastated that he perches up next to his kitchen counter and breaks plates repeatedly while wearing a 1,000-yard stare. And this isn't a spoiler, we learn of their breakup 5 minutes into the film. The story here is less about them falling in love and more about diagnosing what exactly went wrong. Summer is perfect. He loves her smile, her laugh, the way she sleeps, the way she likes his type of music, the way they play like children together in public. To Tom, this breakup is a blindside, and through a handful of details, you can begin to see his point, and in fact, may even start to grow angry with Summer. She gives quite a few mixed signals. In one scene when Tom's friend asks if she has a boyfriend, she says she doesn't really believe in labels or love. She likes being free, and as a child of divorce, she doesn't much care to be in a relationship.
Relationships are messy and people's feelings get hurt. Who needs it?
And yet, not 6 minutes later in the film when Tom's buddy accidentally spills the beans about Tom's affections, she lights up and begins poking him about it, clearly trying to see if he'll admit it, and heck, it almost seems like she'll give him a chance if he can muster up the courage.
Just as friends?
I mean, I don't know, I hadn't really thought about, yes.
He can't go through with it though. Later, she kisses him in the break room to initiate things, then just doesn't address it. Here, she reaches for his hand, but here, she hesitates to let him take hers. After their breakup, she dances with him at a wedding and invites him to a party, only for her to kind of blow him off the whole time, and also, well, I won't spoil that just yet, but she's a walking contradiction. And people online agree, it's not hard to find folks who didn't get the movie and think that Summer is just all around horrible. She's manipulative, she leads him on, she breaks his heart, and this is exactly how I felt as a 17-year-old kid watching this movie. I related to Tom because little high school Daryl had a Summer, had a Jenny Beckman. That Daryl had a massive crush on this girl, and we'll just call her Jenny to protect the actual person. Sophomore year, he asked her out. She never gave an answer. But then suddenly, she wanted to flirt with him all the time once he moved on to a new girl. Fast forward to senior year. Once he finally outgrew the relationship with the new girl, he tried to initiate things with Jenny again. She was the girl he wanted to be with all along anyway. He asked Jenny to prom. She said yes, only for her to kind of ditch him for his friend and eventually date that friend instead. It's immensely sad and hilarious looking back. But Jenny broke poor little Daryl's tiny heart. So discovering 500 Days of Summer after all of that happened was hugely cathartic. To know that he wasn't the only one who received mixed signals. To see that other people had felt the plate smashing, Twinkie inhaling, she took a giant shit on my face. Literally heartbreak is him.
Literally?
Not literally. It's disgusting. Jesus. What's the matter with you?
That's like my favorite part of the movie. The point is, in high school, this film was infinitely relatable. At least from a 17-year-old me's perspective. Fast forward to college. I showed this movie to a really cute girl, and she liked it, but she disagreed with me on one big point. She said, Summer isn't the villain here. Tom is. And I thought, that's odd. This girl is really smart. I can't believe she'd be so wrong. And then I dismissed it. But over the years, I'd keep this movie in rotation, and with every watch, I'd begin to see that she was right. And I think this is what's so brilliant about 500 Days of Summer. It's a movie that changes as you mature. Let's take a look at it from a different angle. Seconds after that author's note, we see a young Tom, and the narrator says, Tom grew up believing that he'd never truly be happy until the day he met the one. This belief stemmed from early exposure to sad British pop music,
and a total misreading of the movie The Graduate.
And if you've seen The Graduate, you know it's not a love story. Not really. The final shot of the film isn't the couple kissing as the camera pans away to orchestral fanfare. It's them sitting in the back of a bus as the sobering, life-altering reality of their actions sinks in. The quiet discomfort that follows indulging childish impulses. But this is not how Tom saw it. To him, the film romanticized the idea that love was more important than anything else in life. He is desperate for it and completely misses the point of the film, just as little 17-year-old Daryl missed the point of this one. And so, in those opening seconds, the movie establishes that Tom is both angry about a girl and, if you're paying attention, a wildly unreliable narrator. And we see this in so many ways. The film presents their relationship in this very jarring back and forth manner where you see them happy, and then it immediately jumps to days when Tom is lamenting their breakup or when things are falling apart in front of his eyes. It purposely takes these beautiful moments and contrasts them with sobering ones to make you feel like he does. It's a jumble of joy and agony which only intensifies the remorse at what could have been. When Tom is happy, the screen is washed over with shades of blue, water, trains, wallpapers and seats, backup dancer outfits, which, by the way, is the color Summer wears in almost every scene, subtly cueing you to associate Summer with his happiness. When he's devastated, the blues are gone. It's almost like the color has drained from his world. His story revolves around her, and it's unhealthy. And the way these memories are cut together, it very much supports his side of the story. But later in the film, Tom's sister suggests that maybe if he takes a look back, he may realize that things weren't as perfect as he imagined. And if you do this, if you try to look at Summer's actions in the film not through Tom's eyes, you see a different story. Summer is clear multiple times that she does not want a serious relationship, and while that's contradictory to how much time she spends with Tom, it actually shows that she is trying. From her perspective, what once might have felt like scenes of her leading him on slowly become moments where you can see her giving him a real chance, testing out what a life with him would feel like. One of their biggest dates is in IKEA, where they literally pretend to be an old married couple. The scene in the break room reads as her trying out a kiss with him instead of giving in to her wild desires. And when the whole no labels thing finally comes to blows, she even shows up to his doorstep to apologize, clearly taking some responsibility for how frustrating this must be for him. So the breakup, while tragic at the start, suddenly feels like the only natural course of action when you look at the full picture. But I think the real nail in the coffin to 17-year-old me and the folks that really can't stand Summer is this moment at her party. Which, spoilers, but hey, you've come this far now, right? Is this moment at her party. When, despite all of that talk of no labels, Summer is engaged. What on earth happened to her philosophy? How come she couldn't be Tom's girlfriend, but has no problem being someone else's wife? It makes you furious upon first viewing if you relate to Tom. It made me furious all those years ago, and it culminates with Tom quitting his job, going back to his old profession of architecture, and trying to build the life he originally intended for himself before he settled for this office job. And in one of my favorite shots of the film, we get this parallel. Tom stoically rides on a bus as he starts from scratch, and Summer wears a glittering smile on her wedding day. High school me felt such a profound anger here that it broke me out of my sadness and made me want to do something. And it's around that time that I began taking the prospect of college seriously. I thought, fuck Jenny, fuck Summer, fuck love. I'm tired of losing. I'm moving forward now. And the beautiful thing is, that was my favorite shot then because it was motivating, and it's still my favorite shot today for a totally different reason. One of the things that is kind of glossed over in this movie is how often Summer encourages Tom to get back into architecture. In fact, their first real conversation is basically, hey, why are you doing greeting cards when you're clearly passionate about architecture? And she presses him about this in little ways throughout their time together. But again, it's Tom's perspective. These moments feel less about his career and more about how wonderful Summer is for believing in him. So in the final act, when he takes his life in his own hands and properly pursues it, you get the sense that this is the real value. Tom is learning to love himself, and I think that's the real moral. It's certainly one thing I took away from this film when I decided to really start looking into college. But also, I think it's important we take a look at Tom's response when Summer initially says she doesn't believe in labels or love.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Okay, well, what is it that I'm missing then?
I think you know when you feel it.
While from Tom's perspective, Summer's engagement is an outrage, he completely overlooks the fact that this is her architecture. She, as a person, grew from their time together. He was right. She even tells him this.
I just kept thinking, Tom was right.
No.
Yeah, I did.
And while it hurts that it wasn't him, the fact that she can love someone means that their time together mattered. This shot, Tom on the bus writing to an interview, Summer on her wedding day, isn't a tragedy. It's a triumph. In this moment, both of them are pursuing something they were once desperately afraid of, all thanks to their paths crossing. She taught him how to be brave in pursuing his dreams. He taught her to be brave in pursuing what her parents didn't have. Despite it all, they healed one another. And as an adult, seeing Summer's perspective and realizing how wrong I was back in high school, I could begin to see how things might have been different. In retrospect, maybe if I had waited for Jenny to give me an answer instead of cowardly running to another girl to avoid rejection, things would have been different. Maybe if I had clarified, no, I don't want to go to prom as just friends, the story would have had a different ending. But you know what? I'm infinitely grateful it didn't. Because it didn't, I ended up meeting that cute girl who made me think differently about this film. The girl who would eventually become my wife. My equivalent of Tom's Autumn. And if how I handled things with Jenny was a mistake, it has been the most grand and magnificent mistake of my entire life. 12 years later, 4,453 days of autumn later, this story is still unfolding. 500 Days of Summer was never a romance film. It is a story that finds value in a near miss and plants seeds of gratitude that blossom over a decade later when you realize how much you grew because of that person.
Yeah, I should have just resurrected Ghost number 7. That was a complete video. But I think 500 Days of Summer is a really good one to end this on because it swirls up all of these dead ideas into one giant ball of cotton candy, if you will. Sometimes almost and should haves and regrets and never had the courage to's teach us more about ourselves than our accomplishments do. Why were you so afraid? What did that failure help you focus on? Was that person really trying to hurt you? Or were you just looking down on the situation from a heartbroken balcony of self-importance?
And writing about all of these almosts has brought me a certain amount of peace and, in fact, a tremendous amount of courage. Every time I sat down to write these ideas out, I, without fail, thought, shit, should I just make this? And I think that is going to be my philosophy, not just in 2026, but with every video moving forward, with every decision moving forward.
Life is far too precious to spend time grieving the ghosts of things you never did, words you never said, people you never called. Don't just lament what never was. Learn from it, celebrate it, accept it. After all, you're still breathing. You ain't a spirit yet. Go live.